welcome to the Sailor Moon Fan Club podcast. I'm your host, Victoria L. Johnson, and I'm here with Ryan La Sala. He's the author of the young adult fantasy novel Reverie and the upcoming young adult rom-com novel Bedazzled. He also is the co-host of the Celebrity Book Club podcast and a Sailor Mercury truther. We'll get into that later. I'm super excited. Hey, Ryan.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited you're here.
Yes, thank you for having me. Really, any chance to talk about Sailor Moon is... I mean, any conversation I have with anybody, I try to navigate Sailor Moon into, but this can just be a conversation about Sailor Moon.
Yeah, that's what I really love about it, too. It's like, you can just bring all the, like, excitement and, like, thoughts and feelings that you have about Sailor Moon and just be unashamed about it here.
Yes, amazing. I love it. Yeah. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. So, the first question I like to ask everyone is, what's your first memory of watching Sailor Moon?
Like many people, Toonami was like the thing that brought Sailor Moon to me. But interestingly enough, I had sort of met Sailor Moon elsewhere in my life because my older cousin was also reading the manga at the time and like knew about Sailor Moon and would like talk to me about it before I really even knew what like manga or Sailor Moon was, because I was young. I was in like elementary school at the time. And so I saw it, but also already like kind of had an idea of it in my head, and it just created this idea that like all things out there could be like it, right? Like I was like, oh, like it's one of those magical girl shows where girls transform. And I would race home after school, and I think it was at like 4:00 p.m. wherever I was for a long time. It was after Dragon Ball Z, and I would watch it, and then I would watch Reboot after. I don't know if anybody remembers Reboot, but that's what was on Toonami when I discovered Sailor Moon. And then I would spend the rest of my night dancing around in my living room pretending to be the Sailor Scouts transforming.
I love it. And I do remember Reboot. I used to watch that show too. Yeah. I don't remember the character's name, so I just remember like the look and like the blue and
yeah. If you want to like really trip
random
out, just like Google image it, and it's like a full body memory to like just see it, because it was such a specific like aesthetic to that show. And I've done that from time to time just to remind myself that it's real, because it seems to be just you and me that remember that.
Yeah, no, it is definitely one of those shows that like have this kind of like, it feels like a fever dream where it's like, was that real? Like I feel that way about Freakazoid sometimes too. Like, is this a thing?
Oh my god, yes. Freakazoid, who got his magic powers from his cat stepping across his computer.
I forgot about that.
I can't forget about it. I'll never forget about that.
That's great. I love it. Yeah, definitely a lot of nostalgia and fever dreaming there. So back to Sailor Moon. So when you were watching it, how did you feel? Like, what were you thinking?
Oh, I loved it. It was unlike anything else that I had really ever seen. And I'm queer, and I was a really young queer person, just searching for like things that sort of had that like luster of queerness that I didn't know was queer, but like still could recognize, right? And so like I would look for it in everything, and Sailor Moon just like had such an abundance of it. And I would actually say probably like kind of calibrated all of my artistic sensibilities as to like what I liked. But yeah, I loved everything about it. I loved that it was a show focused on girls that somehow became more powerful when they like put on like their like sexy sailor outfits, the transformation, and the fact that they could sort of ease into this like liminal space where they would have these like highly choreographed, beautifully animated transformations and these attacks, and also just like, I don't know, I mean, I was also a kid of Greek mythology. I feel like all like queer people loved Greek mythology growing up. Like that also had like kind of the same luster. And so anything that was like astrological or sort of planetary in its organization was also deeply alluring to me. And also gemstones, like all of these things. I don't know if they were as a result of Sailor Moon or if they sort of all existed in me and then brought me to Sailor Moon, but they all just like activated such like a deep wonder in why I love the show, and why I was like deeply obsessed with it. It's still to this day, I would say, is probably the most like formative force, creative force outside of the things that I've actually produced myself that kind of controls like my imagination.
Yeah, I feel this exact same way, especially with like astrology and astronomy. Where I'm like, I love like the stars, and I love like gemstones and like, astrology and stuff. And I'm like, is it because of Sailor Moon, or was that always like just there? You'll never know.
I know.
Chicken and egg.
Yeah, I often feel like I like manifested Sailor Moon as like a kid because it so completely fulfilled like so many different things that I wanted. And I'll never know. It is a chicken and egg situation. I'll never know if that's because of Sailor Moon and I sort of backed into these interests. But yeah, no, it was like my everything. To this day, it's like I think about it all the time. If I'm like having a bad day, or even if I'm just like unmotivated, I will literally pull up like transformation sequences and just like turn them on and have them in the background, and it never fails to kind of like bring me back to myself.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Same here.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had like any favorite episodes or standout moments?
The standout moments that I think I watch again and again, I think the finale, right? Like that very final episode, the fight between Sailor Moon and Galaxia. I always love returning to that. I don't know why. It's just such like a well, I mean, I know why, because it's like a fantastic finale, at least in my opinion. And it brings me like such a rush watching that, and also sort of deeply encapsulates like a ton of like the lessons of the show. So I think of that a lot, and I also think of all the time I'm thinking of how we really did Fisheye such a disservice in the American dub. Same thing with like Zoisite and all of the other like queer characters. I totally understand why like dubbing had to do what it did to them, but to this day I don't know. I'm excited to do my like annual rewatch of the show because I feel like I'm forever trying to like erase out the weird things that like the original dub did to them and sort of replace it with something that's a little bit more true to the manga. But I think of those characters a lot. That and then the fight with oh my god, I'm gonna get the names wrong.
It's fine, no judgment here.
Yeah. Okay, in the Black Moon Clan, the four sisters.
Oh, well, okay. I might do. There's Emerald. There's Cone.
Yes,
there's Flash Cassie.
Something. Hold on. Ashikashi sisters or something like that.
Oh yeah, Ayakashi. Yeah.
I think something. Yeah, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, that fight, like the fight between like the Force Inner Scouts and like those girls, I love. I love it. I like watch that all the time.
Yeah, I think through this podcast I've kind of been like going back, and I think that was the first time I kind of saw a villain turn like good.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. Well, it may not have been, but it's one of the first times
like
I remember that.
It's interesting that you say that because I think one of the main things that I loved about the show was that I don't know if you like. I'm sure other people have mentioned this, but for me, it was like really incredible to watch Sailor Moon not necessarily like vaporize people, but to actually use like whatever her power was to kind of absolve them of their evil intentions and turn them good. And even like the people that she did like vaporize, like right, like the monsters of the week oftentimes turn to dust. Mm-hmm. In the Japanese, like as they're being like blown apart by like rainbows, they're like beautiful and like lovely. And I love that. Like even in the face of like an impending death, they're like, let me compliment this girl's spunk. Like she's really got a glam factor going on here, and I love that. And then for the Spectre Sisters is what I know them as because that's what they were in like the English dub. For them, yeah, they one by one are sort of like turned to the side of good and they renounce like the Black Moon Clan because of Sailor Moon, and I loved that. I thought that was the coolest thing ever, and so unlike really any other kind of classic hero versus villain, light versus dark narrative that I was seeing.
Yeah, no, that has come up, like, you know, just Sailor Moon's compassion and like how she always sees the good in others, and how that's just like such a great I guess attribute to have for like a hero in a story. Like we don't really see that in like a Goku.
Right, I know, like Frieza's not over here being like beautiful as like the spirit bomb blows him up. Like, yeah, that just it wasn't part of it.
Right. Like I too have good in me, Goku.
Yeah, no, you wanted in Dragon Ball Z, you wanted those guys dead. Because by that point, like also in Dragon Ball Z, like people had been killed by the time they got to these final battles. Like the stakes were high. But no, I get it. But I love the whole Sailor Moon thing. The compassion thing was huge for me, and definitely shaped kind of my idea of like what a hero could be, and you know how someone could sort of be a hero. And to this day, like that sort of has informed like my approach to even like the fights that I get into with people. Like I am looking to bring them to the side of good rather than vanquish them. Or if I am going to vanquish them, I at least want them to know that I'm doing a lovely job.
I love that approach. That is so true. It's like, I'm gonna vanquish you, but I'm gonna look really pretty while I do it.
Yeah, it's gonna be fucking beautiful. And a bunch of gay
Right.
people are gonna stand up and go, yes, queen. That's what I'm wanting.
And say, lovely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I read your tour article, and I thought that was something I never thought of before, just like them saying beautiful and lovely as they're getting like pulverized or vaporized.
Mm-hmm.
And just like that, like even like in awe of her power, or even like I forgot the word you mentioned. I think it was like they kind of feel not at ease, but like they're being exercised almost. It's like
what it is it's absolution, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and in that article, so Tor had me write an article, and I'm famously known for adoring Sailor Moon. So when Tor approached me, they're like, what do you want to write about? Do you want to write something about like Sailor Moon? It had nothing to do with like the book I was promoting, but it is the thing that I love most. And so I jumped on the opportunity. And yeah, that article is all about like, I think it's basically about how as a little kid I used to like sit in church, and instead of thinking about like Jesus or God, like the Messiah, the thing that I thought of was Sailor Moon, but for a lot of, I think, the same reasons that like people look to like spirituality and saviors, in part because Sailor Moon does embody like such a like deeply compassionate savior and sees the good in things. And if you're like if you're a young queer kid sitting in church, like you've been told time and time again that like you're the sin, right? Like you're the thing that's rotten. And so approaching a Jesus-like figure was not on my agenda, but approaching Sailor Moon, like, a young girl who was messing up and a crybaby and danced around in ribbons, but still saw the good in people, like, a much better figure in, like, my young adolescent mind. And to this day, like, I would put her in front of a kid well before I would put anything that's, like, biblical. I just think it's much better.
Yeah, I mean, I get that totally. And it's funny because Sailor Moon's actually what made me like kind of understand like that part of the Bible. It's like, oh, that's what he's trying to do.
It's
Compassion.
The closest, yeah, it's like the closest I could come to organized religion as Sailor Moon. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, it like clicked for me. After I watched that fight with Galaxia, I was like, oh, that's what the Bible's about.
Yeah.
Or what they're trying to,
it's It's a
Mm-hmm.
great framework to kind of work through that stuff in. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. It's so funny. I'm pretty sure I know, but did you have a favorite Sailor Scout or Senshi?
Yeah, I go through phases. I really love all of them, but I need to stand up for Ms. Amy Mizuno, Sailor Mercury. I think that she is the most underrated Sailor Scout, and I think it's like criminal what we have done as Moonies to who I think should be a more popular Sailor Scout. I think she's the best, and I think it's obvious that she should be more popular.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, especially like in my most recent rewatches. Like she really pulls her weight in this group,
Yes.
like very much so.
In so many ways too. Like, this is, if I go on too long, you need to shut me up about this, but like, first of all, like she's Sailor Moon's first friend, right? Like, so she really does represent like the tone of the team that is formed. It is formed, I guess out of destiny, but also like Sailor Moon sees her and befriends her as someone who's sort of an outcast and, still interesting and still powerful in her own way. I love that. And it's just them for a little while, and I like love their teamwork. Also, like, she controls water, which I think is the coolest element. Also, like, the most available element. So of all of the Sailor Scouts, like, she's the one that I would want to be paired with if I was, like, I don't know, exploring like a spooky mansion or doing any sort of adventure. Like, she's powerful. That is powerful. And her attacks span strategy, they span defense, they span offense. Like, she can do it all. And she shows that range, right? Like, and she also has a supercomputer in her earring. Like, I don't know. The reasons are profound and endless. And last but not least, she also has the most sensible footwear aside from Sailor Moon herself. They both are actually wearing boots with like a sensible heel rather than like, I don't know, like Sailor Jupiter's running around in like wrestling shoes with heels on. Mars has like a strappy sandal. It makes no sense that they can fight. And then we've got like Sailor Mercury who actually shows up prepared. I think she needs to be rewarded for that.
You're so right. Like, not only is she powerful, she's super strong and like a good partner, like teamwork,
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you would want her on your team. You're right. If I was in a haunted house, I would totally pick her first. Like I think my first inclination would be Sailor Mars, but I feel like Sailor Mercury could figure it out.
I think she could. I think that we
Mm-hmm.
gotta go with smarts. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. This is like, I would never fight with somebody and like despair. I really love all of those Sailor Scouts, and I can find reasons to adore all of them. But I
Mm-hmm.
just think that Sailor Mercury I always see her like ranked last, and I just think it's so deeply unfair. And I think it's just because people are like, whatever. She's like the nerd with like the shaggy bob, but we really forget about how powerful and good she is in the show.
Yeah, I completely agree. She is definitely underrated. I am fully on board with the Sailor Mercury truther.
Thank you.
Train.
I appreciate this.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, no, I love Sailor Mercury. She has been getting love on this podcast, and I'm
Yeah,
really
I have
happy
noticed
about
that, and I think that's because
Yeah.
your interviews, they have taste and reason.
Thank you. Yes, I try. Just bring the Sailor Moon compassion, you know? Sets the tone.
And yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What about? And I actually, I don't know if I know the answer to this. Who's your favorite?
My favorite Sailor Moon, because I am semi-basic.
That's okay.
But
She's
yeah,
the best. She's awesome.
she is awesome. Yeah, I just, it's the same reasons, like the compassion, her being kind of like this goofball and like who is like not perfect, but also can like destroy you if she wants to, and sees the good in others. Like I know all those things. I don't know if that's at the time what I was feeling, but like looking back, like it's just stayed really consistent over the years, and just found new reasons to always love her, because she's just, I don't know, she's so precious and like funny and ridiculous, but also powerful. And I'm like, I want to be and am some of those things.
I think that that's a really lovely and beautiful like composite of reasons to love Sailor Moon. I think a lot of people, at least when I was first getting into the show, like everyone's like, oh, she's the worst, because she sort of is, right? Like she is like useless. And I think if you're like a kid looking for like like a fun action hero, you don't necessarily reach for her among the vast, like, there's many options in Sailor Moon of people to adore. So yeah, I can see why Sailor Moon like may not be at the top of the list. But I've noticed that as Moonies get older, they tend to appreciate her as a hero, right? Like as a figure to sort of organize a story around. I think she makes a ton of sense, especially for what she's trying to do. And I don't know, part of that I think is because we start to learn more about like what it means to be compassionate, what it means to be part of a team. And those things make more sense as we get older.
Yeah, and I think a lot of things that come up too is like the fact that she's 14. It's like maybe we should cut her a little bit more slack.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, she makes more sense as a 14-year-olds. When you're younger than 14-year-olds are annoying. When you're older than them, like they're still annoying, but you at least understand why, because you've been there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so those are the reasons. And I do like, it's funny, it didn't bother me as much like her whininess when I was younger, but like when I was older and I was rewatching it, and I was just like, oh, this is pretty bad. But
yeah, she does not want this job.
Yeah, not at all. She's like, I did not sign up for this. I don't know why I'm here. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. No, she really got a raw deal.
She did. Like, not fun.
That said, at any point, if a cat pulled me aside on the street and was like, "You're the Moon Princess, bitch," I'd be like, "Yes,
right."
I knew it.
Knowing all of that she went through, I'd still be like, sign me up. Where do we start?
In a heartbeat. Yeah. If only to be given her like disguise transformation pen. Ooh. I lived for that thing. The like many devices she had, that was the thing that I wanted the most. Although the tiara was good too. I used to practice throwing a frisbee. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember the episode where to get into like private school she had to throw a frisbee?
Yeah.
I loved that. And I was like, if ever the day comes, I need to know how to throw a frisbee. So I got really good at frisbee because of Sailor Moon.
Oh my god, I love that so much. Yeah, I love that, because it was like, I think she was just bad at everything. She was like, well, I can throw this frisbee all day. Like,
yeah, well, yeah. I wonder, was the Negaverse? I love the Negaverse too as like a concept. All of their like funny ploys were incredible. But I do think that they were like, we'll get her via like, I don't know, a frisbee throwing contest or something like that. I feel like that was part of, I don't know. And again, like, it might have been a fever dream. It might have been a Sailor Moon episode from the 90s. It's like so hard to know the difference. But my memory is that like their dastardly ploy was to set up a frisbee throwing contest to like only admit girls who could potentially be Sailor Moon to like a private etiquette school. That's my memory. If someone listening to this knows otherwise, like, you have to let me know.
No,
But I'm happy to proceed with this delusion.
You are absolutely right. I definitely remember that.
That's
I
really...
rewatched that episode probably about a month ago. So
Mm-hmm.
that was part of it. Like, and I think all of the things they were testing them on, they were like, oh, the Moon Princess is good at this and that. But of course, like, Usagi's not good at all of those things, but the frisbee throwing was the only one she was good at.
That's so funny. I just love that. Yeah, the Moon Princess can throw a frisbee. Like, what a strange sentence, but one that is completely factual in the world of Sailor Moon.
Definitely. There are many things that are only factual in the world of Sailor Moon.
I love it. Yeah,
for...
you could go on and on. It's great. I love it. I love the logic of that show more than anything.
Yeah, same here. I was working around this tweet where I'm like, talking about Promise of the Rose. Is like, if a guy isn't going off planet to get me the perfect flower and then getting possessed by said flower just to like take me back, I don't want it. I don't want that love. Yeah, it's not that.
It is not enough.
It's not enough.
Oh, the Promise of the Rose. Even people who love Sailor Moon, when I bring up the Promise of the Rose, like that always makes them a little fuzzy because like not everyone saw all the movies, and like even people who are like aware of how like funny and queer the show was without really knowing it are still surprised. And I'm like, oh yeah, Tuxedo Mask has like a vindictive boyfriend who like goes off planet and gets a demonic like what is it called, what is it called? Like when you, like a corsage, basically, like a boutonniere. Yeah. He gets a demonic boutonniere that like possesses him. It's like a sexy lady with like her tits out coming out of a flower that's like, let's go destroy Earth for gay love. And then he like competes with Sailor Moon. It's incredible. Like it's, I tell people this all the time that like Sailor Moon spends more time like, rescuing Tuxedo Mask than vice versa, and that's one of my favorite reversals. But that movie is literally like he is a damsel, and Sailor Moon has to go get him from space because his boyfriend comes back. It's so good.
It is so good. It sounds like a plot of like a bad sci-fi movie, but like it's so good.
It's so good. It's so good, and also the animation throughout that movie is just it's beautiful. I mean, the movies are in general really beautifully animated, but that one in particular I think about often.
Yeah, same here, especially when it came back out in theaters. I had such a newfound reappreciation for it.
Yeah, that must have been fun.
So good. Yeah, I'm hoping they do the same with the other two eventually, because
I wonder if they'll call it the Black Dream Hole.
Oh gosh.
That whole movie was so funny. I think I didn't really understand it at the time, but now anytime it comes up I giggle. That and when what is Sailor Moon Moon's like, I am now Black Lady.
Oh my god, it's so funny and horrible.
It's so funny. And they they like changed it though to like,
she went to Wicked Lady.
Yeah, Wicked Lady. Wicked Lady.
Yeah, I was like, that's the only good thing the dub people did. Yes. Changing that name, because that was the only good decision they made in that writer's room. Not the only one, actually. There was a few.
Maybe you've seen this, but when people take like the like the performative activism of like Twitter and just like how like white allies are sometimes just like so awful and co-opting of like certain language, and people will always respond with that clip of like Sailor Moon being like, I am Black Lady, and then Luna P turns evil right next to her. And I lose it every time someone responds with those.
It's just so perfect. I've used that also for Kim Kardashian.
Yes! Yes! Oh, God. I know. So deeply, like, not the intent of what it is, but it's just so pitch perfect for a lot of these things.
It really is. Just repurposing Sailor Moon things for funny things on Twitter is, like, my favorite thing ever.
Yeah, please keep doing it. I find it hilarious.
I will keep trying.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, you have a Sailor Moon fan fiction, which I thought was really cool.
Yes, I do. I love that. I forgot about this, and I've been thinking about like new installments for it recently. I didn't forget about it. I forgot that it was publicly accessible. Because I started
you have to dig for it.
Yeah, you do have to dig for it. Well, I started it before I was a author. I started it when I was waiting for notes on a manuscript from, I think, my agent, just because for the first time in my life, I needed to not be working on a book. I needed to be waiting for notes. And so I started other writing projects, and I didn't want to start a new book. And so I said, well, what have I always wanted to do? And of course, the unbidden answer was I want to, like, write my way into these scenarios that I've always wondered about in the world of Sailor Moon, that because it's an anime and sort of a serialized, like, weekly anime, like, they can't go into, like, full detail on these things, but, like, as someone who's been a lifelong fan, I've ruminated on a lot of these things for a really long time, and I want a space to kind of talk about them. And so thus, the Moon Twilight flash fiction, and flash fiction's like, you know, quick fiction, so it's a pun as well, but yeah, that's where that came from.
Yeah, I love the concept because, like you said, like there are things in Sailor Moon that I think about often, but this is not one of them. It's just like, how will Sailor Saturn feel growing up knowing that her 3 moms tried to kill her at some point in her past life?
Yeah, they had a concerted effort to, like, destroy her, and she's gonna find out about this, right? Like, and actually she does know about it, because as it's sort of implied that, like, she's a kid until, like, the spirit of Saturn, like, reawakens her. But that spirit of Saturn is the very thing that they tried to kill. So she has now access to all of these memories of, like, the 3 moms that tried to raise her, trying to destroy her. Like, how do you resolve that? What do you do with that feeling? So yeah, that's one of the stories. Another one's, like, my, like, victorious fan fiction of basically Sailor Mercury hunting down, I think, Udiel, like, one of the Witches 5, who I think, like, she escapes or something like that. I forget what actually happens to her, but I wanted to write about, like, Sailor Mercury meets, like, Taken with William Nielsen, which, like, she's like, I have a very specific set of skills. And in this, it's like she controls the moisture in someone's body to, like, torture them, to, like, get answers out of them, because that's something that she should be able to do. She's Sailor Mercury. She controls water.
Like Katara. Yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly. She, like, basically bloodbends, and and I wanted to write, you know, a vicious, like, Code Mercury type of thing. And so yeah, it's sort of my playscape for a lot of the thing, which is fan fiction for a lot of people, but yeah, it's like a playscape for a lot of the, like, things that you think about but are not necessarily, like, canonized.
Yeah, I love that so much. There's another a series I read where it follows kind of Chibiusa growing up on the moon, like in you know, the silver millennium. I'm trying to get things right now, but yeah, basically, like, in Neo Tokyo or whatever it is. And it's just like, oh, this is cool. Yeah, exactly.
That's great. So that's
like,
great.
This is so cool. Just like things.
Yeah, things like that are. Yeah, I think such an advantage to having, like, an older like, people who discovered Sailor Moon are now, like, a lot of, like, creative people in the field and are sort of returning to it in really fun, cool ways, like comics and art and stories, or, like, influences in, like, the books that they're writing. I love it. I really love being able to, like, recognize, like, the Moonie in somebody, and then I, like, find their Twitter, and of course they're obsessed with, like, Sailor Jupiter, and I'm like, I fucking knew it.
I love that. That's so funny and semi-true. But speaking of which, you are one of those creative people who have grew up on Sailor Moon. You're welcome. It's true. You have one book out, one book coming out. Tell me about them. I did read Reverie. I have not read Bedazzled, obviously, because it's not out.
If you said you had it, I'd be like, where did you get it? Bedazzled does come out soon. I don't know when you're airing this. It may be out by the time people are listening to this.
It will come out the day before it comes out, so you can get it tomorrow, guys. You can pre-order it now.
Oh, please do. Yeah. And if you're listening to this, and it's not yet January 5th, look me up on Twitter. I have a launch event that's sure to be something Sailor Moon themed. I'm sure will come up during it too. But yeah, so let's see, my books. Reverie is a young adult novel. It's super gay, but it's about this young boy named Kane who's battling a, like, drag queen sorceress to rescue his town, but also his sister from, like, her clutches, because she's trying to basically use, like, dream energy to overwrite reality itself and sort of reform it in an image that flatters her. And it came out last December, so December 2019. So it's actually been out for over a year, and I would say that the Sailor Moon influences in that, I think, are really obvious, but I guess I'd want to leave it up to the reader to sort of suss them out, and so I won't say too much, but I will say that, like, in both of these, the main character is sort of a young, inept crybaby with, like, rainbow-colored magic that doesn't know a ton about how powerful they are and sort of has to figure it out through working with a group of people with, like, semi-secret identities that kind of have to transform to access their powers. And also, I have long believed that all of the villains in Sailor Moon are, like, kind of like drag queens. They're just so, like, heightened and, like, over feminine all the time that
I can see that.
I think that the fact that I wrote in my first book a villainous drag queen, I don't know if it's completely based in Sailor Moon, although it does make sense when you look at, like, Queen Helenia and, like, Galaxia and all of these, like, high-powered cackling ladies. I think that Posey, who's the drag queen in Reverie, would absolutely sit down for them for tea.
I would like to see that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
And what about Bedazzled?
Yeah, so Bedazzled is not a continuation of Reverie. It's a totally separate book. It's also young adult, and it's actually a rom-com. It's like a contemporary book. It's about two ex-boyfriends that are battling against one another in a competitive arts and crafts competition showdown at, like, a Comic-Con. The whole book is basically centered around cosplay and, like, geek culture and anime, literally. And it's about a young artist named Raffi who is super, super talented at arts and crafts and cosplay and, like, costume construction. And the thing is, like, even though he knows what he does is art, his mother, who's an actually, like, famous artist, doesn't think that anything cosplay related or really even, like, pop culture related can really be treated as, like, real art, right? And a lot of people think that, whether or not they really acknowledge it. They sort of look at, like, comic book conventions and fan art and fan fiction and cosplay as, like, derivative of the main thing, when, like, I don't know if you're actually in on any of this, if you understand, like, the joy that's behind it and the artistry that goes into it. And so Raffi's trying to prove to her that, like, what he does is real art. He's going to do this by competing in, like, a cosplay competition, which are so cool. If you ever get a chance, if cons ever come back and you can attend them, you absolutely should. But he's gonna take home the top prize, except when he shows up, his, like, main competitor turns out to be his ex-boyfriend, who he was supposed to be competing alongside but is now competing against. And the reason they broke up is maybe cosplay and anime related. And that's all the first chapter. This is, like, all covered very early on, and the rest of the book is sort of like an exploration of, like, the actual competition that they go through, but then it also flashes back to their relationship, like how they met one another, and eventually what kind of drove them apart. So yeah, that comes out in January 5th. So it probably is out by the time folks are listening to this, and I'm so excited because, it's completely inspired by my obsessions with, like, Sailor Moon and anime and, like, comic book conventions and all things, like, geek and nerd culture. So I guarantee, like, if you're listening to this podcast, right, because you love Sailor Moon that much, like, you're probably who I had in mind when I was writing this book.
I love that so much.
Yeah, I'm so excited about it. It's all the things that I love mashed into, like, a book about a breakup that I myself went through.
Wait, this is breakup cosplay and anime related as well?
Kind of. I was with a guy for a long time who's a total sweetheart. We're very good friends, and he, like, knows about this, but the book was inspired because we went to Comic-Con together and we both cosplayed, but I was the one that kind of had to build the costumes because I'm very artsy and crafty, and he got a lot of the glory because he's hot, basically. So it was a very frustrating day, but, like, also a really, like, fun day, and I was also exhausted the entire time, and I'm super anxious as a person, and so it was this really interesting day of, like, I don't know, put a lot of weird tension in our relationship because of cosplay and, like, anime, in a way that I walked out of that convention center and the next day called my agent and told her about this, like, book idea, and then I wrote it.
Oh, well, sucks that you guys, I mean, sure it's for the best, but, like, story idea out of it, so yay.
Yeah, we stayed together for, like, a year or two after that too. This wasn't the reason we broke up. It was just the inspiration behind it. But and now we're very good friends. If anyone's wondering, we had a great breakup, like A+ breakup. We did a good job. We were very adult about it, and now we're good friends. And the book's dedicated to him. Literally, the book, like, he knows all about it. It's not like my side of the story. It's very much like something inspired by our dynamic that then turned into its own story.
Oh man, that's great.
Yeah,
yeah, I
fun.
can totally get that though, because yeah, that makes all the sense.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I saw you also or have a podcast, Celebrity Book Club. What's been your favorite celebrity book so far that you've talked about on the show?
So right now we are reading. This is like every time I say this, I feel like I'm making it up, but I'm not. We are reading a fantasy novel that came out, I think, in like 2012. I forget, and it's by Tyra Banks. The supermodel Tyra Banks.
Oh my gosh. I was not expecting that at all.
No one ever is, because it came out, it hit the New York Times bestseller list and then immediately went out of print. You cannot, there's no like ebook, there's no like audio. You cannot get your hands on this unless you find like a first edition from like a used bookstore, or it's in many libraries. But yeah, Tyra Banks wrote a fantasy novel during like the dystopian boom. It's called Model Land, and it's about a girl named Tookie de la Creme, who is like the only girl in all of Metopia, which is like the city, I guess, who doesn't want a chance to like be discovered and recruited to Model Land, which is this like glorious place in the sky. Also, there's magic. Yeah, my friend Clarabelle, who's my co-host and the one that sort of came up with this podcast idea, discovered the book, called me and was like, would you be willing to read this book and make a podcast out of it? And so yeah, that's what the podcast is. It's literally every week we sit down with like a new chapter and like go through it at like a reader level, but then also at like a craft level, because the both of us we're authors ourselves, and we've had to, we didn't have supermodeling careers, so we've had to find our way into publishing, and based upon like the actual books that we write. And for all of the faults, the story is actually so funny, and it's hard to get your hands on it. If you can, you should read it, but if you can't, I don't know, listen to our book club about it, because that we're on chapter like 7 right now, so there's plenty of time to kind of tune in.
Oh my god, this is blowing my mind.
Yeah.
I was like, Tyra Banks fantasy? What?
Yes, it's great. The back of it, hold on, I'm like looking at it now.
I just looked it up.
Did you see that the tagline is "Beauty is in the smize of the beholder"?
Oh my god.
It's so good. It is so good. I'm like a longtime Tyra fan, and this book, if you're not really familiar with publishing, usually celebrities like have a ghostwriter write their book. Someone like me basically is approached to like write these books, and we're put under a ton of NDAs, so we can't talk about it. I'm fully convinced Tyra Banks wrote every single word that we're reading. It is all her.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it's great. It is a treasure. We're waiting for her to find out and send us like a cease and desist about it. Already, some of the ANTM girls, like her show, like the America's Next Top Model, like some of those girls have like responded to our stuff. Like, it's really funny. Like it's become there's like a following among like top model fans now, which is exciting but also scary, because I'm just like, oh god, Tyra Banks is gonna like, she's gonna smite us from a top model land with like a lightning bolt of glitter.
Oh my gosh, you may be grateful because you might be the only ones who read it.
Yeah, maybe. I'm determined. My goal, and I tell this to Clarabelle all the time, my goal is to get that book back into print. I think that it needs to be appreciated at like a mass market level once again.
I agree. Like maybe even adaptation.
Yes, well, it was supposed to be a trilogy, and I don't think they continued it after the first. This is gonna blow your mind.
Okay.
There was a theme park in the works, and the theme park actually is still happening. It was about to open a whole Model Land theme park that had nothing to do with the book, mind you. Like, I'm sure it was part of the book. I'm sure the book was like marketing for it, but like now if you go to like, it's like modelland.com or something like that, like there's a Tyra Banks theme park, and it is called Model Land. It vaguely resembles some of the things from the book, but the book is nowhere mentioned. So I can't tell if like Tyra Banks wants people to read it or not read it. It's really, really like a surreal thing. It feels like an alternative universe artifact that we found this book. So I'm forever grateful that Clarabelle called me to do this podcast, and we've been having a freaking blast doing it. It's a lot of fun.
Sounds like either really good or really bad scavenger hunt. Like there's a theme park, there's this book no one knows about that's somehow available somewhere in some places, but not really. Yeah. Oh my god.
Exactly that.
I found a used copy and I'm very tempted to buy it.
Oh my god, if you do, just know that like I'm not exaggerating a single bit. with
Oh,
anything
yeah.
that I'm saying. It is as wild as, it's probably more wild than I'm even making it. I'm sure I'm downplaying it.
Oh my god. I want it. I'm wondering now, like, is Tyra Banks a Sailor Moon fan? Can I get her on this podcast to talk about this book?
Oh I would love it if you would. We like, my big dream is to like interview her
Yeah.
about Model Land, but if she's a Sailor Moon fan, like, yes, between you and me and our podcasts, maybe we can like triangulate Tyra Banks
Ooh.
into doing some sort of speaking engagement. I know she would be definitely down for it if it was the right conditions. I would like to think so. She seems like a really cool, like, funny person, so I can't think that she
Yeah.
takes anything too seriously.
I think so too. I'm gonna investigate this because, oh my god,
Yeah.
you just blew my mind. I was not expecting that. And also, for some reason, I thought you guys read like autobiographies by celebrities, but it's even better than I thought.
No, we're like specifically reading fiction by celebrities.
Right.
Because at some point in every celebrity's career, like, they get approached to write a book, and most of them do biographies, but some of them do like random like fiction. So for instance, like, and usually the fiction is like thinly veiled biography. So like Tyra Banks and Model Land, but like Nicole Richie and like Paris Hilton, like, both have books that are about like a rich girl that's misunderstood. What will she do? And like the like Kylie and Kendall Jenner wrote a dystopian novel that no one fucking knows about because
What?
yeah, it was years ago, and it was back when, like, I'm sure an agent approached them and was like, you guys are teens, like, why don't you write a book for teens? Like, you're part of this like
dystopian.
up and coming family, like, it'll be a huge hit. And I'm sure that it was. And then because the book's probably awful and because it didn't actually have any readers, it was just all marketing, like, it went away. And these books are out there, and so yeah, our whole goal is literally to like bring attention to like this pattern, and then to also read these books and like deeply analyze them, like, at a sentence level for for you know, like you would in an actual book club.
Yeah, I love that. Oh my gosh.
It's fun. It's really fun.
If I don't, I'm gonna get the book and I'm gonna listen along with you guys.
Yes. Oh my god, you must. You absolutely must. We also take like predictions and calls from readers as well, because there's just so much like it turns out a lot of people have like, this is why I think that we're getting Tyra Banks paid, because a lot of people have bought the book in response to the podcast and are reading along with us. So I think that we're owed something. I don't know what, but hopefully it's not a cease and desist.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna hope it's not either. I feel like it might be more of a, I think it'll be positive. I'm gonna say that. I think it'll be positive.
All right. Well, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Well, we talked about a lot, but what else do you stand? And it can be literally anything, like a TV show, a person, a
TV show.
thing.
Yeah. Let's see. All right, TV shows. I just watched The Witcher, and I really super adored it, and I am so excited for the upcoming season of it. It just reminds me of like Xena Warrior Princess in such a good way. It's like funny and campy, but also like magical, and I don't know, it feels pretty gay. People, I didn't come to this interview prepared for any people, but I will say that
it could be celebrities.
Honestly, when anybody ever asks me like who my favorite celebrity is, for whatever reason, Shirley Bassey comes to mind. She's the singer that does Diamonds Are Forever and like Goldfinger. If you get a chance, like, look her up. It's been like a comforting thing in quarantine to like look up old performances of hers. She's an incredible singer and like definitely a kooky old lady at this point. And so you know what you might know her from, you know when people are like, she doesn't have the range, you know that saying? That's from somebody doing an impersonation of Shirley Bassey. Like, wow. That's where it comes from. And through that, I sort of like rediscovered my love for her recently. Other things that I'm super into right now, I'm also, the animes that I'm watching, I returned and just finished rewatching Magical Girl Madoka and Cardcaptor Sakura, and I think that those two shows back to back are really weird to watch, but
yeah, it was quite a different.
But they're quite they're like different, but they're also about like young girls figuring out the cost of power and like what it means and how to manage it, and it was really, really fun time. I totally think that like Cardcaptors holds up. It was great to watch it. And also the fact that like if you actually watch it in Japanese, it's so gay because everyone's obsessed with the same boy, including all of the other boys, and that I think is just lovely. And so I've been having like a renaissance where I'm rewatching a lot of the things that I watched when I was younger, and next up on my list is like I'm gonna watch like Gundam Wing just to kind of get back into that, and that's what I'm doing. That's how I'm spending my free time.
I love that. That sounds like a great lineup.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been good.
And what advice would you have for someone who wants to publish a book like you have done twice?
Oh, well,
at least.
That's yeah. It's so I'm still not used to hearing that. It's weird because I still feel really new in this career, and I'm figuring out a lot of things as I do them. There's no school you can go to or degree you can get that teaches you how to be a full-time writer or an author. I mean, you can get an English degree and you can get an MFA for all you want, but there's no like way to learn how to do publishing. And so I think if I have to give advice to somebody that wants to figure this out, the thing that made the most difference for me is finding authors like myself or people ahead of me and following them on social media, and also finding podcasts that demystify like what the publishing process actually is, because it's different for every single person, but a lot of the milestones are kind of recognizable. And so yeah, if you're a writer, you're listening to this, my major advice is look up podcasts like like Write or Die is a great podcast. Actually, my co-host for Celebrity Book Club, Clarabelle Ortega, is also a co-host of that podcast. And this is like before we were friends. We did like an interview on this, and sort of became friends through it. But that whole podcast is about like, you know, writers and the challenges that they faced and sort of how they got to where they are. Same thing with like First Draft by Sarah Enni. There's a lot of really rich resources out there for learning about what publishing is and how to do it. And then actually like navigating the waters of it. And I think that's important, because the last thing that I want for new writers, and the thing that kind of pains me to see, is someone spends, you know, years working on a book and then kind of gives up upon it because they actually get to the point where they're ready to share it, but they're just too intimidated, or find out that there's just a lot more to getting published than they originally thought, because it's not easy, it's not simple. And so this is why I encourage people to, alongside the actual act of writing, do your best to kind of do your homework, and that way you'll feel a lot more prepared when you get to the stage when you're ready to share your work.
Yeah, that's a great advice, and I think I am subscribed to both those podcasts, so I will second that.
Yay! Oh, that's so good. So, is this when you tell me a little bit about your writing? Can I ask?
Oh gosh, you can. No,
I would love to
okay.
know. Oh my god, yes. I don't know if you want to talk about it. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I think getting comfortable talking about what you're writing and working on is a good thing. So I'm curious, and you can edit this out if you want, or leave it in, and people can be like, "Oh my god, what is Victoria up to?" But I want to know, what are you writing?
It's perfect. So I am attempting to write a detective story with a young black girl. Yes. It's kind of like Nancy Drew-ish, but like she's searching for a missing princess. Oh
my god, cool. Yes. Yeah, is it fantasy or is it contemporary?
Contemporary.
Ooh, amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just like, I want something that's just like straightforward without any kind of added elements.
Yeah, so you were like a mystery and we're searching for a whole ass princess. Super straightforward, Victoria.
I guess, maybe not that straightforward.
Yeah, you know, your everyday mystery novel. Sure thing. Okay.
Just, I want dragons and such is all.
Got it. Okay.
And then the other thing, which I don't think I've ever spoken about out loud to anyone, well, on the internet, I'll say I've spoken about it to like friends in like texts and stuff, but I'm trying to write my own magical girl series. Yes. Inspired by hip hop. So we'll see how that goes.
Oh, that would be cool. Are there transformations?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I would definitely love that.
Yeah, so those are my big 2021 goals. I kind of have an outline together for the detective story, and I have an outline for like the first few chapters of the magical girl story. So we'll see. It's coming together, and I'm really trying to, I mean, part of asking about advice is for like other people, but also for myself. Yeah. And I'm looking into classes to take early next year, and kind of just starting to like set aside time to write, because I realize that is all I need to do. Yeah, it is the frustratingly but clearly most important thing
My most
Yes,
important part
words.
of being a writer is actually writing. That's the most fundamental. Don't let
I
yourself
know.
stop yourself from doing that.
Yeah, it's so sad. It's like the words just don't appear by themselves, apparently.
I know. Yeah, you can have all the
It's.
contacts and clout, but unless you're
Mm-hmm.
Tyra Banks, supermodel of the world,
Right.
that book is not going to get written. And she even wrote it herself. So even if you're Tyra Banks, you still
Yeah.
got to write the book.
Yep. Exactly.
That sounds great. Well, I hope
Yeah.
that you have lots of awesome progress. I'm really looking forward to both of those projects. They sound awesome.
Thank you. I will. You'll. I mean, you'll see. I guess updates on
Yes. Oh my
social
god, no, I
media if
can't
anything
wait.
ever happens. But yeah, really excited. Thank you for asking though. I don't always get asked questions, so it's fun.
Yeah. No, I'm not far enough away from having been sort of where you are that I'm not
Mm-hmm.
also super curious about like what people are up to. I don't know. I don't know if that'll ever go away. When the second I hear that someone's writing something, I always want to know what it is and how I can help.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, of course.
Same here. I love hearing about people writing on too. But on a side note, I didn't ask you this. I've seen you put a lot. You put a lot of tweets out about which kind of characters are which Sailor Scouts for Reverie.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just gonna ask about Bedazzled, like, or unless you want to answer both, you can also answer both if you want. But
So for Reverie, the clearest link is that Kane, who's the main character, I think resembles in a lot of ways Sailor Moon. Although they're really different. Kane is like this like nasty little burr of a gay boy, not like this like goofy, fun kind of lovely cry maybe, but they both do cry a lot. And then Ursula in Reverie is largely inspired by Sailor Jupiter because I wanted someone who was like tough and like physically tough and hard to deal with if you're the bad guy, but also someone who like stress bakes. I love that dichotomy. And I think like Sailor Jupiter, great character for that. She loves to sort of be like matronly and like take care of her friends, and at the same time like that includes beating people up and like bench pressing like thugs. Great combo. So I wanted that in a character. In Bedazzled, I don't know that I have like a way through this with those characters. I think in part because it's hard for me to think these characters are so recent for me, so I don't know that I have like a ton of perspective. I also didn't start with any sort of like links in mind. Although Raffi, I guess like he's this young, anxious, super ambitious like little kid basically that's looking to kind of like get recognition, and something about his like passion and his fire feels very Mars to me. The fact that he has a really secure sense of like who he is and what he wants, but at the same time like he gets a crush and is still like fangirling over people. Like I love that, and I love that about Sailor Mars, and so maybe that's who his scout is. But I don't know. I wouldn't put that in stone. That may change. I may change my answer.
ooh, okay. Well, that's perfectly fine.
Good.
But thank you for answering either way.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And then, just like Sailor Moon had her, Sailor Moon says a phrase at the end of every episode. What would your phrase be? So Sailor Ryan says.
Oh my gosh. All right.
Snuck up on you.
This snuck up on me. I have not been thinking about this. You think I have this. What's like a good Sailor Moon says that you can remember? I need a jumping off point.
Let's see. I think, well, I mean, obviously you kind of mentioned it earlier, like not what's the word? Like seeing past someone's exterior and, not making judgments.
Yeah.
Something some people have said in the past on the show of late is like punch fear in the face. Let me see if I can remember other ones.
Oh, you know what? I've got one. I'll reach for my kind of classic tag phrase. That comes from growing up being like completely gay and then slowly being excluded from things and then deciding that, well, I have a way to handle that. So I would say Sailor Ryan says, when you stop getting invited to parties, throw better parties yourself.
I love that.
Yeah, there we are. That's it. Spite and revenge are what I would be powered by if I was a Sailor Scout.
That's perfectly fine.
Good.
There's room for everybody.
There truly is room for everybody. There's like There's Sailor Scouts for everything you learn towards the end of the series.
Right. Like Iron Mouse. Like,
Yes! Oh my god, Tindy Yako, Aluminum Siren.
Yeah.
I was like, if these girls are here, I am also ready to be a Sailor Scout.
Oh yeah. This episode, well, I'm recording these episodes in opposite, but people will hear in next week's episode, after this episode comes out, Ayami and Valerie Complex, who's gonna be next week's guest, talk about how, like, you know those planets that have like random names like X2513? Like, what if there's a Sailor Scout?
They've got one.
Planet? They've got one, yeah.
Absolutely. I want to be the Sailor Scout assigned to the asteroid that like wiped out the dinosaurs. Like how like she's here. She's on Earth still. Where's that Sailor Moon continuation?
That, yes, we need that. And also like all of Sailor Jupiter's 62 princesses just like floating around.
Yes. Oh my god. Yeah. Her court. I want this. So this is where like my flash fiction comes in handy. But like I can just tell like I have so much other stuff to do. But what I'm gonna end up doing this week is like writing about like how Sailor Pluto felt reading the news that she was no longer a planet. Like, what did she like have a meeting where they're all just like, ignore it, Setsuna. It doesn't matter. And she was like, it fucking matters.
Right.
It's got to be that conversation had to have been had. Like,
oh my god, what if she got depowered once that announcement was made?
Right? Yes. Oh my god, like she got like saddled with like red tape that like, and they like confiscate her pen and they're like, sorry, you actually don't get a planet pen. You're not a planet. You get a dwarf star pen.
Oh my god, no more planet power for you.
Truly, yeah. Like you can only use star power or crystal power. No planet power. Yeah, like. This is what I wonder about. Victoria, this is what I think about all the time. I'm so glad that you're on the same page.
You are in the right place at the right time. And I do too. You should definitely, if you haven't checked it out, there's a comic called Moonsticks that kind of deals with a lot of these things too, and it's really funny.
Oh my god. After this, will you DM me a link?
I would totally DM you.
Please, I would love this.
It's so great. And I think it kind of, there's one where it's like Usagi and it's like her constant transformations and like at the end she's like trying really hard to hold herself up because she has like the wings and like
yes. Oh, the Eternal Sailor Moon wings to this day are such an iconic costume choice. I love them.
Same. They're so good.
So good.
So yeah, there's a lot of good material there, and I think they have a Pluto one too. So I'll send those to you. Not exactly what you said, but addressing her not being a planet.
Perfect.
Yeah. Where can people find you and all of your amazingness?
All right. So I'm most active on Twitter. You can find me via Ryality at Ryality. So RYALITY. I've got a website that has all of my socials on it. RyanLaSala.com. That's LASALA.com. And right now I'm most active I do a ton on Instagram. I'm getting really into YouTube and like video making. So if you want to know more about like how to write books, how I do what I do, you can submit topics to me and I will make videos on them. So like right now I'm recording a video about like suspense and when the reader knows something but like the character doesn't, like how do you do that and stuff like that. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I'm also I've been getting into TikTok recently too. Mostly like watching and cackling at people's TikToks because there's like a huge like anime contingent on TikTok, but I don't know. I also have been having a lot of fun recording videos there too. So yeah, I'm all over the internet. You can't miss me.
I love that. Yeah, I've watched a few of your YouTube videos too, and they are awesome. So anyone listening to this should definitely check them out.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think you kind of answered this, but what's next for you? It seems like TikToking and YouTube.
Yeah, TikToking and YouTube. Honestly, the greatest irony of my life is that while working on a book about like passion projects and arts and crafts, I didn't get to do a ton of passion projects and arts and crafts this year, and so I've done some, but the next thing that I want to do honestly is I'm going to launch this book. I'm going to do a bunch of fun promo events and interviews and stuff like that too, but I'm really looking forward to just like getting back into like all of the fun weird projects that I kind of had to put down when promo started for Bedazzled, and that includes fan fiction, that includes my YouTube videos, that includes art. I also draw, so I'm really excited about like not thinking about books for a little bit and really getting back into just like all of the other stuff that that brings me joy.
Nice. And actually I didn't ask earlier, what was the cosplay that you created that inspired Bedazzled?
Absolutely. So it is, I will find a photo of this at some point and post it probably in the next week or so, because I have to like come clean about where this book came from. But Sal, who's my ex and friend, he wanted to dress up as something like elaborate and like difficult, and so he picked Hawkman from the DC universe. You probably remember Hawk Girl or Hawk Woman from like Justice League, but he wanted to be Hawkman, and I was like, okay, well then I'll be somebody else. And he's like, no, you should be Hawkman as well. And if you're yeah, it was weird, but also there's like canon to this. Basically, Hawkman, the joke is that Hawkman has two totally divergent backstories because they've rewritten the character so many times. So like if you're Carter Hall with a K versus with a C, you're a different Hawkman, but they have the exact same costume. So like it is a joke. And if they're like really into the DC universe and like you see two Hawkmen, you get it, but no one got it. So it was just the two of us running around as like hawk people during this convention, and it was still a blast. And the costumes, they weighed a ton because I had to make these like giant wings for them, but to this day it's the most elaborate thing that I've ever created, and I'm super proud of it.
That is super cool, and none of that is surprising knowing what I know about comic books.
Yeah, no, I know. It is very much a comic book themed joke.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love that I saw you Bedazzled covers of your Bedazzled book.
Yes, I couldn't help it. I could not.
Yeah. So definitely looking forward to more arts and crafts and seeing them on the internet.
Yay, thank you so much.
Yeah. And once again, I am Victoria L. Johnson, and this is the Sailor Moon Fan Club podcast. And you can find us at Moonies Club on Twitter and Moonies_Club on Instagram. And we have merch now at mooniesclub.com.
Woo!
Yeah. And thank you, Ryan, for coming on the show.
Thank you, Victoria. This is so much fun.
So much fun.